So these are the different land uses that have been downloaded. They've been keyed into the spreadsheet. If they've been highlighted green, if they're done. If you don't have that, this document right here will tell you how to log into IT's website and download more. I've also added the instructions from that directly into today's cheat sheet. So page 2 talks about how to do that. There's actually a hyperlink right here to their website. Let me sign out, show you what it would look like when you first log in. So you log in, you plug up here. Again, the cheat sheet has the email address and password. And we log in there. Oops. That's spelled right. And how about the password? Not all caps. Third time's a charm. Yes, no, maybe. Here we go. Okay. So we want to look at a different land use. Now we looked on our spreadsheet and we found that hair salon was kind of close. So we want to go into land use groups. In this case, it's actually service industries. We've got terminal, industrial, residential, lodging, recreational, institutional, medical, office, retail, services. So we're going to go down and check services. And right here, you'll get a list. I don't know if stretching this out makes that list easier to see and even longer use. Not really. Okay. Hair salon was kind of looking to be the closest. I don't think it's really great. And was that 800 something? So that might be under
918.
Retail. What's that?
918.
There you go. Hair salon. I don't think any of these others are a closer fit to a pet grooming place. So let's see what the hair salon thing says. Now, what you can do is you can actually plug in the number of the IV is the independent variable. So you can go with thousands of square feet. This is a small facility. The building is not labeled. Building is that's 1,200, and this is, I think, enclosed as well. So we'll call it 1,350 square feet. 1350, and actually it might be 1.350 because it's per 1,000 square feet. And I'm going to calculate, and it's going to show me that the number of trip ends on the adjacent peak hour is where's the results? Anyway, I don't tend to use this online plotter because I find it to be not that useful. I like using my spreadsheet better. So you go up here, click for description and data plots, and this is where you can actually download the land use. So I'm going to show this in a folder. I'm going to cut 918 out of there. I'm going to go back to my server, and I'm going to paste it here, and I'm going to rename it. 918 is going to stay on there. So the 3-digit code is what they call the ITE land use code. We have that spread all over our spreadsheet so we can tell what's going on there. Since I want to add a new land use to my spreadsheet, instead of modifying the one for this project, I'm actually going to go ahead back into my server and modify my master spreadsheet. And we may find that there's other land uses we need you to add to this spreadsheet in the future. So go down to where 918 is. And we're going to open up a slot in there. We're going to copy something else. I usually try to find something that happens to be close by, but also something that has the same kind of formulas. I don't like to rebuild logarithmic formulas from scratch. Basically, I copy ones from other land uses, and then you modify the parameters, coefficients to match here. So we have for our formulas here, there's not a fitted curve. That means you're just going to use the average. Still not given, not given, and not given. So for the case of a hair salon, we don't have to have logarithmic equations. So I can take this drive-in bank. Remember, all the way at the top of the spreadsheet, it's going to tell you what the current edition is. So when the 12th edition comes out, I'm going to have to pick another color and update the spreadsheet kind of all over again. And I just tend to go land use by land use as projects come in. A couple years ago, about 5 years ago, when the 10th edition was new, I had a young man here who literally like went through all the land uses and kind of rebuilt them all. So there's a lot of them are yellow from when the frost shell was here. And it could be that, you know, on a slow day or a day when you can't get my attention, you're kind of stuck. Maybe we talk about you converting some of the other land uses that are like this one. I can probably just delete because I have the drive-in bank in green and I still have the old one in blue. So then I can just go, you know, buy. All right. Oh, I have hair salon. But it's yellow. The problem is with the yellow ones, they've now added a split between entering and exiting traffic. So in the morning, a business has a lot of people coming in and not as many leaving. In the afternoon, you get the opposite. And now Deldot wants us to bake all that into our trip generation diagrams. So even though I have this, I'm pretty much going to scrap it all. So I'm going to copy the bank. Copy it. Insert copied cells right here. I'm going to change the land use definition to 918 drive-in bank. Change it to hair salon. Delete all that. Come over here. Delete the page numbers. I like to put the page numbers in there mostly because when I have learned the hard way that I had a mistake in my spreadsheet, it was pretty easy to tell from the page numbers, A, where it might be in a hard copy, which I used to put all that in, and also just to know that I actually had really updated it and that it wasn't some kind of oversight. So page 619 is the weekday peak hour of traffic. So oh, that's interesting. They don't have any, they only have peak hours. They don't have average, they have average rates for something, but they don't have a average rate for the whole day. So that's interesting. So our square footage is, what we say, 1350. And fitted curve, none given. The average rate is 1.21, but it's not for the weekday. It's for the AM peak hour on the weekday. So we actually skip the first line. We jump right to 619. It's nice that they have all the data, but some of them do not. And this is obviously one of them. 2 trips per day. Do we have an entering and exiting? This is, if I enter the entering, the exiting will be calced automatically. So the entering percentage is not identified. So we're going to call it 50-50. The PM peak hour of traffic is 1.45. The weekday AM peak hour of generator. Now what this is this is when the business is at its busiest, not when the street is at its busiest. Some businesses don't really correspond to rush hour. So the afternoon, the busiest hour might be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, the soap operas are over and ladies go out and get their hair done. The street's not, the salon's not as busy when the street's super busy. So, and then Saturday peak hour generator. So they only did peak hour studies. They don't have a lot of studies. As a matter of fact, it looks like they have precisely one. So this is probably the exact same data as what was in the 10th edition. Saturday peak hour is 5.08. So Saturday is significantly busier than the other days. And so we'll probably make reference to the Saturday hours in our letter that we write, defending why something with this low amount of traffic, they should just leave them alone. Come on, leave them alone. But we'll see. And that's going to be 50% coming in, 50% going out because they did not provide a ratio. Oh, there we go. Saturday does have a ratio. Is it, do they all have it? Rexel distribution was not available for the top one, but everything else does. So the PM peak hour was 17% entering and 83% exiting. And then, and that does come into play because ultimately we're going to draw a diagram with little arrows showing how much traffic is moving in each different maneuver into and out of the site at the peak hour. So the weekday PM peak hour generator is 38% entering. It's not available, so we're going to go with 50% for the AM. And then Saturday, it was 36% entering, 64% exit. All right, so I've added this land use to the bottom. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, is I have a formula here that will add up all the average rates across the project. So if I set that back to 0, this should be running at 0. Where's that coming from? There's got to be a land use that's not set at 0. I tried to when I'm, okay, let's see here. What was the job number? The job number was Westwood Shores. That's going to be single family. We want to set all the other land uses back to 0 before we save the spreadsheet. It should have been set at 0 already. So automobile care center is 3,100. So we don't change it here because that's actually a reference, but that tells me what row I'm in. 1286. So 1286. Set the automobile care center to 0. This back here. And now all these are 0. So now I can save that. Now I need to add a hair salon to this thing up here. One of the reasons we use this is because if we are doing a mixed use shopping center, it has a gas station on a corner and retail and a restaurant. We want to have it add all the different pieces of the traffic data together and give us an aggregate. So again, this is a spreadsheet that is tedious to set up and very helpful when you need it. Because if you don't use something like this, you're going to be kind of manually adding up the data or you're going to be creating a custom spreadsheet every time. If the land uses we wanted were already in here, we would plug in that square footage and the data would populate up at the top of the spreadsheet and we would already have our trip generation would be taken care of. So let's go in here and let's add a spot for the hair salon. So I'm going to grab these 4 columns rather, and these dozen or so rows. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to insert it right here, and I'm going to shift right. Push all that out there. All those should still work. Now I have to remap these. So instead of a drive-in bank, this is now going to be hair salon. Right here, I want to tell it to pick from, that description is in cell A1060. So I'm going to go plus, boom, done. What's the square footage? I'm going to grab the square footage from right there. Now, one thing you have to be a little careful about is X is the coefficient that's going to be shoved into these formulas. With square footage, typically that's divided by 1,000. Where you have to be careful is, let's say you're doing a gas station and it's asking you to quantify fueling positions. So 1 pump, fueling position on either side, or a long island with 2 pumps. So that's 4 fueling positions. That's not going to be divided by 1,000. So you're putting the quantity in this column here, column E, and X is what ends up going into the formula. You just kind of do the top one, and then the rest of them just copies it down. But you want to make sure that this top X number is either dividing by 1,000 or is not. You want to make sure that your independent variable is properly shoving over. That way we don't have to remember right here to write in 1.350. We know our square footage, we toss it in, and it takes it from there. So said all that to say this, up here for our hair salon, we're going to take that square footage line here and pull it from that cell right there. Boom. Okay. The curve, we're going to go plus and grab the very top ADT per curve, which in this case is going to be very unexciting. And then for the average, we want to pull the ADT or the average rate right there. And then the entering, you actually have to be a little bit careful about modifying. You're not just picking a cell, you're actually updating a formula. So in this case, one thing that's kind of handy with Excel, and you probably already know this, when you click up here, it's now highlighting where it's getting that data. So $M1045 is obviously, that's pulling that percentage right there. So I need to change the row it's pulling from to 1061. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to tell it, bump that 1061, and then C034 is pulling it, C034 is pulling it from right there. That's actually already correct. Come right here, do something very similar, change the row, 1061, and that's going to give you your exiting traffic. The C034 or CO34. So yes, it's taking the average and it's going to split up between entering and exiting based on the ratios we've already plugged in down here. Now you're just going to take this and copy it down. Almost done, but there's one more very, very important step. And I say it's very important because I've managed to screw it up on several occasions. We're going to pause the video.